So, hello everyone. My name is Sankit Kimboy. I am the IEEE Entrepreneurship Week event, and I hope you can all hear me. Hello. I hope I am audible enough. Yes. So, yeah, I'm the IEEE Entrepreneurship Week ambassador, and we had planned for our 1 week event. So, we are going to have these webinars for today, tomorrow, and on Wednesday. And today we scheduled our topics today. We are going to handle market research. We are also going to introduce IEEE entrepreneurship. One speaker of ours, Kivinji, is going to handle on introduction to IEEE entrepreneurship. Then we are going to have market research and also entrepreneurship as a driver for innovation. It will be handled by Olufemi. Yes. And then now I think we can proceed. So, Kivinji, kindly, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sang. But I think I know the structure in this quorum, and it will really be nice, at least to hear from the rest of the ambassador, because I know you are the lead ambassador. But I know in the regional level we have other ambassadors. Maybe just a word from them, it will really be nice. Maybe you can introduce your team, and then that will take less minutes. You can call them, and then they can just shout word or two, and then I can pick from there.
Okay. So yeah, we are a team of the ambassadors who are organizing this event. We are a team of 8, and with us here we have one, and we have Marceline, we have Clifford, we have Dennis. Yes. So maybe if you can start.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Clifford Oma. I am a IEEE member, and I'm also part of the Entrepreneurship Week ambassadors. And yeah, thank you for joining this event.
Thank you, Cliff. Marceline.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, if you can hear me, my name is Maslin. I am an ambassador for Entrepreneurship Week, and I look forward to really learning a lot from our speakers throughout this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Maslin.
Yes. Dennis.
Hi everyone, my name is Dennis Kimboy, a IEEE member from Multimedia University and also ambassador for the Entrepreneurship Week. It has been a long journey is coming to organize this Entrepreneurship Week, and we believe that you, the participants, are really going to benefit from whatever we have prepared for you. So thank you very much. Back to you, Sam.
Thank you, Dennis. So the part of the team, I think they are not here, but we also have Anthony Okello. We have also on our support is Charlton Martha, and we also have Stephen Okwiri, and also Marvin Gesa. Yes. So you, Kivinji, you can proceed.
Thank you very much, team, for this great event. Yeah, so I remember the last, or rather the first time we had this event was in 2020 or 2021? And we really put together some similar stuff where we had a whole week of engagements, and a lot of things happened. And some teams that we presented actually had an opportunity to go up to regionals. Of course, they didn't go past regionals, but it was really nice at least to see them go up to that level, and other things followed. But the finals happened, and of course, the other teams in the other regions did quite well. Other than that, allow me to share my screen. And apparently, you haven't told me how many minutes I have, because I hear you say we have 3 speakers, and it would really be nice to know exactly how many minutes I have so that I can optimize on that.
Yes.
No, how many minutes do I have?
Okay. You have around 20 minutes. 20.
Okay. So, around 8:05. 8:05, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'll try to my level best because I have lots of information to share. I will
Okay.
try to compress it to see. Kindly confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay,
Everyone
great.
can see
So,
the screen. Yes. If you can see the video screen, kindly react with a thumbs up.
okay.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I believe it's visible. So, yeah, my name is Kitinji Muriungi, and among other roles that I have, both in the section, in the regional, in African Council, in other societies, today I'll be wearing the hat of corresponding member of IEEE Entrepreneurship Committee. And that is the responsibility that I have today. So today I'm not the YP local chair here in Kenya. I'm not the vice chair of Kenya section, but today I'm the corresponding member of IEEE Entrepreneurship Region 8 Committee. So today our subject topic is maybe someone can mute the mic on that end. Our topic today is entrepreneurship. And I think based on the audience that I've seen here, it seems as if we kind of understand what the topic is all about. And of course, when you mention entrepreneurship, you are more likely to talk about ideas, development, research. I think we have even a topic around that, market research. We have things to do with business planning, investments, among other things. But other than that, because this is a forum of IEEE, it's always nice at least to mention what IEEE is all about, because I understand this discussion, or rather this, by the end of the day, the pitching will be done by a team of maybe 3-4 people, or even 5, I don't know. And this team, the only thing that is supposed to bring them on board and maybe make them proceed to the regional level is that they need one person who is an IEEE member. So it's always nice at least to know who is IEEE and what IEEE is all about. So IEEE is, I can use the numbers maybe to describe. IEEE is one of the largest technical professional organization. And of course, it has its roots in 1800s, 18th century. But the actual name IEEE was coined around 1963, having gone through several other stuff, including Society of American Society of Electrical Engineers, among other things. And it has grown over decades. Almost close to 500,000 members in over 160 plus countries, among other things. So, so this is the IEEE Global Entrepreneurship Steering Committee. So, and this is the team that manages IEEE entrepreneurship in a global level. So when you talk about IEEE entrepreneurship in a global level, this is the team that you're more likely to see and to meet. But other than this team, we have now the IEEE Region 8 Committee, where I serve as a member. And among these people, maybe I can mention a thing or two here. We have one of the greatest entrepreneurs here, like Ken Steffer, Joan Wong, And maybe people that are quite familiar to us, some faces like Simei and Mohammed, among others. And this is the community that we are in. So in this community, entrepreneurship community now, the global entrepreneurship community, out of all the numbers, you can see like the biggest chunk of people is aspiring entrepreneurs, and then followed by those people who at their early stage startup entrepreneurs, and then we have others. These are people who are neither entrepreneurs nor they are just there, but they don't belong to any of these categories. And then followed by a category of scaling startup entrepreneurs, 12%. And of great importance is 6% of these belong to investors. So this goes to tell you that by the end of the day, when you look at this kind of community, we have a very diverse group of people where everybody has a share. And even if maybe you're not an entrepreneur or anything, you have a share which is probably bigger than any other share. Other than that, what exactly are the areas of focus? I think you will keep hearing these and these, some of these keywords as we keep diving into the discussion. But we have 4 main areas that we are really focused in. The first is Women Entrepreneurship Support Network. And I know if Child 2 is in this community, or rather if she's in this call, Child 2, Marceline, they must be very happy, especially hearing me mention these and Kina Maureen, Sheila, and the rest. Because IEEE is really big on women, because they have actually realized how important it is to empower a woman. And then we have tech transfer. So it's one thing to do is to talk about innovation, entrepreneurship, and all this stuff. But it's another thing to support like things that really matter to developments, things that really matter to economy, among other things. And when we talk about tech transfer, we are talking about hardware-based kind of startups. If you have been very keen in around IEEE, you will hear this discussion being spoken quite a lot. Number 3 is deep tech startups. So we have lots of startups, but what IEEE really focuses on in 2022 when we talk about deep tech startups is supporting innovative engineering research through commercialization. I like to bring this into our attention. Of course, doing sales alone without engineering will not really support your startup. And then doing plain engineering, especially when you are dealing with hardware, without actual engineering research behind it, might not really be an end game into this. And so much is anchored around what Konza is trying to do, because Konza is actually trying to do this exactly. Deep tech startups, support deep tech startup, where academia and industry are kind of come together and they make an over-ending kind of journey, which is future-proof and at some point, which is more likely to adapt to changes. And then number 4 is Women Investment Network. Of course, out of the 4 areas, 2 areas are fully focused on women. And these should tell you something. Of course, it's one thing to build a network. It's another thing to support them in terms of networking and also investments, among other things. Of great importance again is, I don't know why my computer is not, sorry about that. Someone. Sorry guys about that. Sorry. Sang, confirm that you can hear me. My screen kind of freezing.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, Paul, for the disruption. So some other program that is really important, especially to those who will be pitching, and probably if you manage to pitch and move to regional levels and even do the finals, some of the things that will benefit from is a mentorship program. And these mentorship programs are 1 hour free mentorship. That is 30 minutes free mentorship. Initially, it was called a founder hour. So this is where you meet the tech founders who have had great breakthrough in their entrepreneurship journey. A very key example is Ken Stauffer, who sold his startup to AT&T at I think $1.3 billion. So those are some of the people that when you talk about mentorship, these are the people that you will meet in this journey. Talking about, again, the support of entrepreneurship through workshops. I've attended this workshop back in 2021. It was there as virtually, but this one, which happened in 2019, it was a physical one. And something that one that is very, very unique to this kind of workshop is that this workshop is tailor-made to suit engineers. As a matter of fact, it's called Entrepreneurship for Scientists and Engineers. So, of course, if you're not a scientist or if you're not an engineer, you will actually be welcomed. But the reason as to why they tend to make it that way is because the speakers and the people who are doing this are actually engineers who have had great success in entrepreneurship. One of them is Raghu, the guy on your far right hand, who is seated in front, and then the other white guy is Ken Stauffer, whom I mentioned. He sold his startup at $1.3 billion. So this is some of the things that you benefit from, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're in this community. You get to hear some perception from engineers themselves, not really guys from marketing or anyone who just come in and they may not really understand how engineers think. So these are engineers, especially someone like Raghu, who is a PhD mechanical engineer. And then he has very successful startups around mechanical. He has a lot of patents around the same area. Someone like Ken Stauffer, who is also a Bell Labs distinguished engineer with lots of patents around that. Of course, if you have had an experience in Bell Labs, you know what Bell Lab is all about. So this is one of the networks and the support that IEEE Entrepreneurship gives to entrepreneurs. And of course, you stand to benefit if you stick to this community, not only through these kind of events, but also through full-fledged kind of workshops where you are taken through a series of events which is fully deep dive into building your entrepreneurship journey. Other than that, of course, there is lots of also recognition and awards. This is $2,000 award, which was the deadline was August this month, and of course, this is also to bring in recognition amongst entrepreneurs. And just to mention a thing or two here is that the recognition comes in two forms. Of course, you are building your startup, you are building your company or whatever you are doing, but more importantly, there is an impact around it, either economic, environmental, social, or whatever it is. But the whole idea is you are advancing technology for the benefit of humanity. Faster, we have the network that I mentioned, the Women IEEE Entrepreneurship Women Network Support. If you're there, you can look around that network and join the program and still engage, especially if you are a woman entrepreneur. This will really be a place for you to get to meet with fellow women, as well as engage and get to see some good stuff around. Other than that, we have other program. This one is powered by IEEE, where as an entrepreneur, you get a support from other partners of IEEE entrepreneurship. I think there are so many benefits around that. I think something that all of us are common with is these credits. You get credits from AWS, you get credits from Freshworks, Oracle, among others. Something else is about IEEE Entrepreneurship Stars program, where you get to meet and engage in one of the biggest startup program. One of the few that I think all of us are aware of is TechCrunch and Assess and also Gistic. So those three, I think most of us are actually aware of. And when I mention about IEEE engagement, you might actually get to see the kind of platforms, or rather the kind of communities that IEEE entrepreneurship offers you to engage in. And for those ones who have gone further into deep IEEE engagement, especially in events, you might have realized how it might be easy for you to attend these events. Someone like a lady from Uganda attended GSTIC, and I know a couple of other people like Mohammed El Delal who have attended CES and Tech Crunch. Sorry, I have someone here whom I need to take care.
Yes, hello, Grinji.
Sorry, I have someone here who is kind of annoyed, but let's proceed. Something else is sorry, my screen is kind of hanging. So that is like the global entrepreneurship, and more into that community is you can engage in any social platform that you are in, and maybe in the next 5 minutes or so, I'd like to jump in now the regional entrepreneurship committee that I serve in, and so that we can put things into perspective. So the team that I serve with is, we have our chair, Rawan, and then the rest of the team that we are supporting this entrepreneurship week and pitching competition, Saif, Hayat, and myself. Other than that, we have also other faces that you will be engaging with, especially if you are in IEEE Region 8, that you'll be seeing around, the likes of John Matogo. I know most of us know him. And what exactly are we doing now in Region 8? In Region 8, we're focusing in 3 areas, which is strengthening knowledge and skills, and then growing the network of entrepreneurs, exactly what we are doing right here. We keep on adding people to this network. And then number 3 is enable entrepreneurs to launch and own startups. Of course, whether you're a student, whether you're an YP, with the idea that you have, this idea will be taken through a process. And if you stick to the community, of course, based on everything that we've mentioned, you will see how good it is and how easy it will be for you to actually launch a sustainable startup. Among other programs that we run, apart from IEEE Regional Entrepreneurship Week, we have also IEEE Pitch, which will happen in 2 stages. The regional one that, of course, the ones who will win here locally, they will be taken to the regional level, and after regional level, they are taken to the finals, which takes place in one of the flagship conferences. And lastly, IEEE Mentorship. I think I've talked much about that. I wouldn't like to mention this much, but of course, the way we define tech entrepreneurship, especially from the entrepreneurship community, is maybe I can mention the last one here. Of course, with the tech engagement, putting tech into whatever you do, and then you make it useful, feasible, and profitable. And of course, scalable. If it's not scalable, then we categorize that as something else and not a startup. Why do I have to mention scalability? Scalability comes at this point. What is the difference between a startup and a regular SME, or maybe an SMB? This is small scale or medium kind of a business. So a startup is able to scale, move from, let's say, a regional to even global, but a small, medium-sized business cannot scale. Let's talk of an example. What initially, you may have someone maybe doing a similar business, or maybe they are doing, let's say, they are selling robots. But that business that they are doing, they are only building for those clients who come to them, and then they build it and then sell it to them. That is a small size kind of medium business. But when you build your robot and then it put on a mass production, and now it's available on any store globally, or someone can just order it from any point that they are in, and there is a supply chain around it, and all that kind of stuff. Now you now tend to translate that small SMB or SME into a startup. And if now it grows, it moves from a startup to scale up to now a fully functional corporate incorporation, among others. So that is why when we talk about startup, especially in an IEEE context, you will hear that there is kind of a tech into it, and the tech is just to make things run faster. But tech is not the first thing, but tech is just an enabler or something that makes you scale, makes you do it in a different way, other than someone who is doing it in an SMB or SME kind of setup. Our impact has spanned through a lot. I think the numbers here tells it all, but I like to skip that and just say one thing in terms of maybe 470 plus startups in local events. So this kind of local event that we are doing, I remember the last one that we did, we had 6 startups, and out of those startups, now we have 400 and others who have joined that pool, and they are still being refined going forward. This is our last, or rather the startups who have really shined all through, and this goes to the ambassadors here and also to the participants. If you are here, where do you see your startup coming in from? Of course, when we look at 2020, we had the B2B telemedicine Nigeria startup, My Clinic, winning the pitch competition. And then on the same, that was the pitch winner, and then the pitch finalist was Smart Aeroponic Garden from Croatia. And then we had another one, Agritech Robotics from Croatia as well. These are guys who are doing agriculture using robotics and such. And then we had anti-counterfeit NFC blockchain from Armenia. That is still 2020. And then when we look at 2021, we had a Jordanian startup coming in, and then also the finalists were also Omcare from Lebanon. Last year, when you look at the data for those startups which have been mentioned there, you can see some of the great moves that they are making, especially the Amtea and Greeners. And Greeners are actually the ones who won last year. Not last year, this year, August, during the finals which happened in Tunisia. And that is the kind of channel that startups go through. You go through from the locals competition, which is happening this week, and then you are taken to regionals, and then the finals happens in one of the flagship conference in IEEE. And this is I was among the team here which organized this, and of course the winners are now into their mentorship and among other things that are happening, especially with Founders Institute, Startup Without Borders, Red Start, among others. This is the status of this year's Entrepreneurship Week. So right now we are in Kenya, and Kenya is among the 23 others events that have been published, and among the 18 other countries that are in this year's IEEE Entrepreneurship Week pitch competition. And that is the match that we have from this side. I hope I see I've gone overboard with 3 minutes, but I'll pass it back to you. And in case you have anything, just let me know. So the IEEE Entrepreneurship Region team and the top 3 ambassadors will attend the Startup Without Borders Go Borderless Summit in February, that is 2023 in Cairo. So as we do all these things, of course, we make sure that ambassadors and the startups also come along so that we can keep on building the community and building the skill set and building the startups that really need to keep on powering Region 8, as well as powering Africa, Middle East, and Europe, as well as the entire region, or rather the entire global IEEE Entrepreneurship Committee. So that's just my final words and comment. If you are new to this committee, we are everywhere in the media, from LinkedIn to YouTube, to Instagram, as well as to the email. That's it from my end. Back to you, Sang and the team. I hope I didn't really rush too much, but I hope the information is on.
Definitely.
Thank you very much. And now I'm going to welcome my one of the team members, the Ambassador Clifford Ouma, take it from here. Yes, as we welcome our next speaker.
Okay, thank you so much for that opportunity, Sam. Thank you so much, Kidinji, for sharing with us all that wealth of information around IEEE Regionate Entrepreneurship Committee, and hope the attendees have taken note of all the opportunities that arise from it, and they just place themselves in a position to just take note of all. So I think from here we are going to move to our speaker session. So a little bit of housekeeping rules. As the speaker speaks, you can always post your questions in the chat section so that it can be handled. Even as for Gitinji's, if you have questions for Gitinji, just post them in the chat section so that towards the end of the session, we will have the speaker address these questions. So for our next speaker, we will be having Olufemi. So Olufemi is the founder of VAV Innovative Solutions, and he will be sharing with us all the wealth of knowledge that he has around market research. Olufemi, hi. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you very much
How
for
are you
having
doing?
me. Doing okay? Yeah. So first off, I hope we can all hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Thumbs up if you can hear him.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
All right. So I'm going to now share my screen. But before that, I would like a big well done to Kitinji for the presentation. I really enjoyed that, and I like the approach he gave on basically the work's being done on entrepreneurs. Okay, so just give me a moment. Let me try and find this. Okay. So I don't know, can we see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. All right, so yes, my name is Olufemi Balogun. I am from Nigeria. I am the founder and director of operations and strategy for VAV Innovative Solutions. Basically, a quick background about what we do. VAV Innovative Solutions is all about increasing energy access while in rural areas as well as campuses, because it's sadly one of the things that we've come to realize that students suffer. Um, First off is the fact that they don't have access to good and affordable electricity, and then they also need access to extra education in terms of STEM related knowledge. So we get to offer all of that to them in the form of a small portable medium of energy storage, which can easily be accessed, and that basically provides them with clean and affordable electricity at a relatively cheaper cost that they would normally have been exposed to normally. So yes, we'll be talking on the entrepreneurship as a driver for innovation. And one of the first few things that come to mind is, what exactly is entrepreneurship? What does that really mean? What is innovation also? What does that mean? Those are the questions that we would want to be asking ourselves and then would need to take care of. So the first thing we would look at is entrepreneurship, and then we consider who is an entrepreneur. And then after that, we would also, okay. And after that, we would also look at, sorry, hold on. Yeah. And after that, we would also look at, we'll understand what the innovation is all about, the drivers of innovation, the entrepreneurship and innovation correlation. How exactly are these related? Because they seem like, even though they seem obvious, there are still some things we need to pay attention to. And then we'll discuss more salient points. And then finally, we talk about understanding your market. So that is where the market research would come in. But first things first, we need to consider entrepreneurship a driver for innovation. So when we say entrepreneurship, what exactly are we referring to? Yes, we would say it is a process of developing, organizing and running a new business to generate profits while taking on financial risk. And that is exactly what it is. You're trying to solve a problem, not just any problem. It's very easy for someone to manufacture a problem. And by manufacture now, I mean there are a lot of things happening, but just because you have a unique solution that doesn't really fit any particular scenario, you would now have to manufacture a problem, out of thin air and say, yes, this is your solution, this is the problem your solution is trying to solve. And it's not necessarily the case. What you want to do as an entrepreneur is to find a pressing problem, something that affects the core of society, or at the very least, the individuals in society, a majority of the individuals in society, and then use that as a basis for developing a new product or service. And by doing that, you've more or less created a new market for yourself. You've carved a niche for yourself in all of this area. So when we say entrepreneurship, it can always be classified into different parts. Yeah, we have the small businesses entrepreneurship, scalable startup, large companies, and the likes. Yes, I remember when Kitinji was talking about, he made mention of, at least he gave some comparison between the small and scalable. So when he said small, I'm pretty sure he was referring to, by small, he actually referred to small and medium scale businesses or enterprises, what we call SMEs or SMBs. So basically, all they do is just provide a basic service to, say, individuals or those around their locales. But when you're talking about a scalable startup entrepreneurship, you're trying to develop a business model, right? A model that can easily be scaled and replicated in other areas. So for small businesses, they're usually tied to one location. Worst case scenario, they end up being franchised. And once that starts happening, it's a way of saying, yeah, you're going into a large company entrepreneurship. But then there's also the part that talks about imitative entrepreneurship. Now, I don't really know much about your surrounding, but I've followed how do I say this now? Yeah, so I know something that would obviously be everywhere are markets, right? The general markets or local markets. And there you would notice that there is a particular line in the market where most of the individuals on that block or on a single line would most likely be sharing the same product, even though someone was the pioneer, someone started um, that idea. You realize that it ends up being copied, but it's not just about you copying that idea. It's about how exactly you are able to build up on that and re-engineer, reverse engineer that process to see how you can tweak it a little bit and make it better. So yes, I would say copying is good, I guess, but the one thing you would want to remember is that there is nothing new under the sun, nothing is created nor destroyed. That's basic law of conservation, but can be transformed from one form to another. So in that regard, you can always look at how you can modify something that already exists in a new way, in such a way that it becomes much more efficient. We've talked about the imitative and innovative now, and then the researcher entrepreneurship is a very, very wonderful type of entrepreneurship, right? Because it basically involves a lot of research, as the name implies. You have to do a lot of work to understand what exactly is happening on the field, what exactly is happening around you, and how exactly you can play your cards to achieve all of that. And it doesn't just stop there. Being an entrepreneur is more than something that should be applied to, say, businesses only. It is, to me, it is a way of life. It is something, it is a culture that should be adopted, because it's the best way to achieve a whole lot more in such an efficient manner. And that brings us to entrepreneurship. And you would probably start to wonder, what exactly is an entrepreneur? Yes, they are entrepreneurs, and then they're entrepreneurs. Entrepreneur is more or less a wide-ranging definition, right? Because it covers those who develop, organize, and then they run their businesses, and they manage all of that. They generate profit for themselves, and all of this is done. And while this is being done, they get to bear the risks. And by risk in this case, it doesn't just mean the fiscal aspect, but as well as the financial risk, so to speak. But that's the difference between the entrepreneur and the intrapreneur. So the harsh reality of life is that not everyone would get to own their own business. Not everyone would get to operate on their own. Not everyone would get to be their own bosses. Most would strive to do that, but the truth is, not everyone would cut out for that. You know what they say: if the whole body was a leg, where would the hand be? Something like that. So in that regard, the entrepreneurship concept refers to a system that allows employees, right, those who are who work for other individuals. And while they do that, they act as an entrepreneur, because that spirit is imbibed in them already. The culture is already a part of them. And so they get to take charge of operations, new frontiers, all of this. The cool thing about being an entrepreneur is that this is being done with, someone else's money, basically someone else's resources. And that's really the beauty of it. You get to still do all you want to do as an entrepreneur, but then there is no financial risk attached to all of that. So moving forward now, we are trying to understand what innovation is. And I'm going to take a quick pause and understand what the time is. At what point am I supposed to stop, please?
Okay. So I think you have you have about 45 minutes. So as of now, you can do maybe, I think you have remaining about 30 minutes, 35 there.
All right, no problem. So I'll just know how to skim through. Yeah, so understanding innovation, that's where we are now. And when we say innovation, we are trying to talk about a way of implementing ideas, right, in such a way that we introduce them as new goods or services, when the reality is that they are improvements, a much more efficient way of doing that which already exists. So innovation is, yes, it's a new idea. It could be a method, or it could be a device. It could be in any, it could be a concept, and at the same time, it could be something tangible. But it's all about the novelty. It's not you reinventing the wheel. it is you making the wheel much more efficient than it already is. And all of this can be achieved through reiteration. You have to keep iterating and iterating, going over the process all over again and again until you get it right. So when we say innovation, that is exactly what we're talking about. Now, there's something we would want to also consider when, while on the topic of innovation, and that's basically the difference between creativity, innovation, and invention. Because I know while I was talking, that must have crossed our minds at some point. What exactly is the difference between inventions, innovations, and how does all of this tie to creativity, and even on a larger scale to what we're talking about in terms of entrepreneurship? Remember, the first thing we said was that an entrepreneur basically takes processes, right? It develops, organizes, and develops a new concept that he can now apply in such a way that he can help the society, his environment, his or her environment, while also making profits from that as well. So, what exactly is the difference between inventions and creativity? When we say inventions, inventions are basically things that were created, right, in such a way that there was no previous record of that. So if we're saying a cart or a wagon or a wheelbarrow now, a wheelbarrow in itself would be an invention, and then moving forward would now say a car or a truck. Now that is an innovation based on the concept of the wheelbarrow that we talked about, because it's all about a body that has a wheel and can be used to transport humans or goods from one place to another. But the reason why you would not look at the car as an innovation is because there is such a huge leap in terms of how it was created, right? And in terms of the redefining process, how it was redefined. And that is why we would now say, okay, yes, this is no longer, yes, quite all right, this is an innovation, but also classifies as an invention of it on its own. So when we say creativity, creativity is about the ability to develop something original. It's particularly an idea or a representation of an idea with an element of aesthetic flair, right? So creativity comes through inspiration. Inspiration comes through learning. So we would need to understand how exactly to tap into innovation. So now we've, sorry, hold on. So now we've looked at entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship, the various types, how we can play into that concept. We now understand what innovation is all about. We're trying to reach a point here, and now we've talked about innovation, the difference between innovation, inventions, and creativity, and we're now looking at how we can drive innovation through design thinking. That was why we talked about creativity earlier. But creativity seems to be like an open word, right? It just seems to be quite open, and you can really define it any way you want. But when we say design thinking, there is a method to it. There is an approach, even though it is not a rigid process or a rigid concept. It's still loosely defined, but still it is a framework that I really like, and we're going to discuss that now. So design thinking, like what you can see, it talks about a solution-oriented process that is used to achieve innovation. But at the heart of design thinking are three major things. First is the user, right? You're trying to meet the need of the user. We talked about that earlier. And by trying to meet the need of the user, if you remember, one of the very first things I said when trying to solve a need is that you also need to capture the need of a large audience, right? So it's not just one particular person. Yeah, it's fine to to create solutions that meet a personal need or just one person's need, but that is a unique solution. That's a unique use case, so to speak, but would need to capture a larger audience, a larger target audience, because that is how we would be able to maximize our products, our abilities, and also profits at the end of the day. So there are three things we need to consider: the user desirability. We're trying to meet a consumer needs or user needs. We're also trying to talk about the market viability. How many people can we reach? Do we have a large enough target audience? And then the technological possibility. Is the technology available? I remember also Kitinki made a mention of that in passing when he said that yeah, sometimes you really don't need to focus on the technology. You can you can move ahead and just try and create that solution first. Try and find a use case, find a problem, find a solution to that problem, and then the technology comes in. So it's all about you properly defining what the problem is. And I don't know if we can make this interactive, but just in case we can't, I will still try and break this down in such a way that we would be able to understand what we're driving at here. So yes, user desirability, the market viability, and then the technological possibility. So how exactly, I believe so now we can see how these things are coming together, the entrepreneurship and the innovation, and just how exactly does the role entrepreneurship play as a driver in innovation. So there are some things we need to consider. As a good entrepreneur, you have some factors. There are some factors that you would need to exhibit, right? There are some factors that must be present, and that is, while they are good things, they can also be a pain to you. They can, at the end of the day, be the bane of your existence. So in that regard, let us just humorously classify these as problems and say, yes, you have to sacrifice because you're an entrepreneur. There's a lot of things on your neck. You're trying to understand the solution, the problem. You're trying to find a solution to that problem. You're trying to generate the revenue that you would use, that you're going to use to well the distribution of your solutions to meet the needs of the people. All of these things, you're also trying to understand your use case and your business model, trying to develop something that is foolproof in such a way that you'd be able to achieve a whole lot of profit from. You have to have the necessary experience as well. Experience is experience. That's the truth of it. Experience is experience, and no knowledge is lost. What you have to do is learn. We just need to learn. We have to be open-minded enough to learn. Experience, even failed experience is experience. At least if you've Thomas Edison tried over 1,000 times to invent the light bulb before he finally got it right. And he looked at all of that and he said, well, I've not learned, I've not failed. I've only learned. I've learned 1,000 different ways of not getting this right, right? So you've not made a mistake. You've only learned. You've learned from you. Yeah, sure, you made a mistake, but now you've learned from your mistake. And It is that optimistic attitude that keeps you going. As an entrepreneur, at some point in the future, there are going to be a whole lot of people working under you, even while you can't work alone. You need to organize yourself. You need to be able to strategize your next courses of actions. Don't do things haphazardly. Just make sure you plan and lay the right steps in plan in on ground before you make any move. It's always good to plan ahead. I'm saying this over and over again. It's good to plan ahead. There's a time and place for everything, and you need to understand the situation at hand before you make a move. Yes, I understand that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. But even at that, there's a point where you would need to come back, reorganize in such a way that you would be able to buffer that hit that you just suffered and then keep moving forward. So I've already made mention of a few things here. Of some of the things you would need to consider is one, you need to learn as an entrepreneur, not how much you know, but how fast you can learn. Really, no one cares about how much you know. No one cares if you know about quantum physics or anything, but how fast can you learn from what is happening around you? How fast can you learn from your mistakes? How fast can you learn from the mistakes or the successes of other entrepreneurs that you look up to, or of your competitions as well? You need to be open-minded enough to learn from everybody. Yes, then the next thing is also for you to protect your brand. You need to stay relevant. Understand your plan. Understand what your brand stands for. As an entrepreneur, you're also trying to carve a niche for yourself in such a way that anytime they hear your name or your brand, they know exactly what you stand for. Everyone hears Bill Gates, for example, and they go, "Oh, okay, Microsoft or Windows is probably the first thing that comes to mind." You hear Jeff Bezos, the next thing that comes to mind is Amazon. That's in that same vein. Understand what you stand for. Other things you also need to consider under protecting your brand is you staying relevant. You cannot just be at the top of the food chain or at the top of the mountain and just stay there. You need to keep you're not reinventing the wheel. You are trying to make it more efficient, right? There is always room. The best way to achieve this is through grassroots involvement. Always be connected to your surroundings. Always be connected to the market. Understand the needs of the people. That is how you would be able to create that unique solution that would meet the needs of the people. It never really is just one problem. But the truth is, there are always two things you're doing at a point in time. The first is the actual problem you're trying to solve, and then the second part is the social or people problem. You could create a solution to help people manage or monitor their electricity usage, but at the end of the day, people might still end up bypassing their meters. So there is that social or people problem, and you need to educate them in that regard on why they need to not do that, why energy theft is a problem, and all of the negative effects of that. So you're always solving two problems at a time. Keep that at the back of your mind. Just do it. Develop first. Just start tinkering, try and understand the problem. Try and see if you can profile a good enough solution and keep reiterating that until you get a proper solution. Don't worry about the opportunities. Yes, there are a lot of opportunities that was mentioned through the IEEE Entrepreneurship Program. There is also IEEE Hack and Epics and Sites. There is Holt Prize for the students. Yeah, there's Holt Prize. There is IEEE MATC. There are lots of opportunities. out there for people. There are a lot of design competitions, hackathons, and funding opportunities available, but you need to get it right. You can't just jump on a call for a call for solutions or a call for entrepreneurs or a pitch competition with a half-baked solution. You need to understand, you need to have something that works. So that is why you need to develop first and tinker very well. And all of this is coming back to one main point that we've been talking about, understanding your market and making the adequate projections. Now, by projections, we're talking about general projections about the world, about the markets, about where the chain of events are taking us, about the financial projections as well, about our goal projections as an entrepreneur who has a brand, who is providing either goods or services to meet people's needs. What exactly are your goals? You need to set those goals. How exactly are you going to achieve that, or the impact level of your solution? So you also need to make your impact projections, right? And finally, you need to make your financial projections. Yes, I'm trying to do ABC, but I'm going to need 9,000 US dollars, for example, to start with. If I can start with 9,000 US dollars, I would need an additional, say, 2,000, sorry, let's say $2 million to be able to get it to a self-sustaining stage. So you need to be able to make all these projections, because while trying to pitch your ideas, and I know there's a pitch competition coming up, I really would have loved to see how you guys fare in that. And it's very, very important for you to understand your projections and not just think about the now, but think ahead of in time. Everything is just like chess. You need to think maybe not 8 steps ahead, but you always need to plan ahead so that you can make adjustments. The truth of the matter is this: always expect the unexpected. That is why when you're making your plans and projections, there are 2 or 3 things you need to consider. You need to look at it from an optimistic perspective and also from a pessimistic perspective. And then you look for a trade-off between those two. And most times, often than not, you would not be disappointed with whatever the future brings. And doing all of this, I really know that we will be able to achieve a whole lot. So let's talk about the market research. And the first thing we I'm sorry, hold on. Can you hear me? I think I was on
We
mute.
lost you for a second.
Yeah, okay. So when we talk about market research, there are a lot of things you need to consider. The research in itself. Research is, yeah, and I can't believe I've talked for this long and not make mention of this. As an entrepreneur, you are not concerned about answers. Answers are the least of your worries. What you need to do is ask the right questions. Questions are what bring about knowledge and the inspirations that we need. So we need to ask the right questions, because that is what guides our research. So our market research is all about the research in itself, trying to ask the right questions. The right questions is where the investigation comes in. And based on the response on that, or from the survey we've received, we can now make some analysis. And with those analyses, we've now been able to convert our data to, say, a useful form of information. And with that, we can now develop a strategy, go back to the customers, right? to get their feedback on that. So that brings us back to investigation. Now we understand how the customers react, and we see that they reacted positively to what we have in mind. And with that, we can now say, okay, let's look for the right opportunity, because we now have a focus group. We have a large enough target market that we've decided to focus on. And doing all of this, I'm 100% sure that success will be guaranteed. I'm going to talk about this in a whole different way. Still the same concept, but I'm pretty sure we would appreciate this a whole lot more. So, can we follow my cursor? Yeah.
Yeah, we
So
can see it.
this wants should be changed to needs. Sorry about that. The first thing we learned in economics back then in secondary school was that human wants are insatiable. So the best you can do is to, at the very least, meet their needs. So this is where we are. And this is the truths of the matter, the market itself, the reality. So we understand that there is an issue here, and we are trying to meet that need. So this is what they want, and this is the market. And by the time we try and understand what is happening, we've created a whole lot of possible solutions that are here under the goal pool. So what we now need to do is pick one of that, and we call that we select a goal and we try and formulate a strategy around that. So we come up with our strategy and we say, okay, this is where we are. There's an issue. Okay, we get our feedback, we adjust, and then we keep doing that. By doing all of this, we are learning. And while doing this, more adjustments will be made. It helps us understand the need a whole lot more. And that in itself is also some other form of learning, which means now our use case, our solution in itself is evolving to become a much more better. Remember, we talked about how the whole process is a constant reiteration, and we keep reflecting, we keep adjusting, we keep learning. Now, doing this is us. Now, this is the market, right? And we understand that by doing all of this also, we're also learning from that. We're getting educated about what is happening, while also educating the market itself, right? Our consumers, because you're also trying to convince them to say, okay, as an example, you need to ditch the firewood and move to clean cooking stoves for a whole lot of reasons. And you trying to convince them, because would not just be by presenting a clean cooking stove to them, but by also educating them that the smokes contribute a whole lot of bad chemicals to the atmosphere, which depletes the ozone layers and all of that. But also the fact that exposure to the carbon gases and other harmful substances could lead to health complications like the cardiovascular diseases, amongst others. So all of that are some form of education that would help convince them. So by the time we are doing all of this, you make adjustments where necessary, and you would now, it's also help you understand if this is the right goal as well. After this, I'm going to share another version of this. I don't think I have that in my slide, but yes, back to the market research. That was just an unconventional approach to market research, and the whole purpose of that was to help us understand what we need to do at the grassroots levels. But now, to a more technical and appropriate way of doing things, we would also need to consider your SWOTs, the SWOT analysis, your strengths, your weakness, your opportunities and threats. You need to understand what exactly you're good at And doing all what I said in the previous case, in the previous slide, helps you achieve that. You need to understand what you're good at, understand your strengths, understand your weaknesses. You can't deceive your investors. You can't deceive the market. At the end of the day, you will just end up deceiving yourself. So it's good for you to be honest with yourself. Know what you want, know what you can achieve, and know your strengths. And all of this would play together to help you achieve what you need to do. So know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know your threats. By threats, we are going to talk about your competitions. If there is anything, if there is an issue with the economy, is there some government policy that is going to prevent you from achieving what you want to achieve? How is the market demand for your solutions or services? Do you have the necessary staff strength to achieve? That's the human or manpower to achieve what you want to achieve. The opportunities now would be are there areas for you to improve at? Yes, there are always areas for you to improve at. The opportunities would also be your competitor weaknesses. There is also maybe new innovations or new in the terms of goods or even services, right? You could have come up with a whole new, a better supply chain model or even a better business model that favors not just you as an entrepreneur and your business, but also the market and the world at large. So there are a whole lot of opportunities or analysis that you need to pay attention to. And that takes us to this chart, the market research and analysis. So at this point, there are a whole lot of things that we need to consider. Yes, this is overwhelming because we talk about the project assessment, we discuss the decisions, and when we talk about decisions, there are basically 2 or 3 things we need to consider about decisions. Decision making is a cause and effect. Coming up with a solution involves making some decisions, and those decisions are cause and effect. You would want to say, okay, doing this, if we do this, if we take this step, what is going to happen? What are the repercussions? Are they good or bad? If they are good, can we take another step forward? If they are bad, do we double back and make that better? And while trying to do all of this, you shouldn't be focused on the short-term goal, but on the long-term impact. That is also why we talked about projections. You may not be making as much progress as you would want to initially, but then always remember that baby steps, dream work, make the sorry, hold on, I lost my train of thoughts there for a moment. Oh yes, always remember that tiny drops of water end up becoming that mighty ocean. So all you need to do is take that first step and take the next step after that and keep going forward. So the chart you're looking at says prepare, understand your market, prepare the necessary assessments and all of that, a template, prepare your database. You need to pay a whole lot of attention to documentation. Now you define your problems, you define your findings from the market research that you carried out, right? You gather your info, you've done some surveys, you've done from door-to-door campaigns and interviews and all of that. You have a good sample size to test with. Now you've gathered those information, you analyze that. There are a whole lot of analysis tools you could use. You could always try out a good thought experiment. A good thought experiment is similar to what I showed in the previous slide. This is a good thought experiment that you could try out to help shaping your goals and ideas. And after that, you come up with your reports, and with the reports, your conclusions, it basically creates a summarized version, and then you know how exactly you it basically tells you the right steps you would need to take to achieve all you need to achieve as an entrepreneur. Then finally is the lean canvas model. Now you've done all of this, you need to figure out how to arrange this in a summarized version for your investors or your potential investors to see. I hope this would be on its own a mark in the, basically a point in the competition that is to come up. So yeah, the problem, you need to analyze your problem, you need to come up with your solution, and you're not just coming up with a solution, you need to come up with a unique value proposition. What exactly makes your solution better than those next door? Why is it better? How exactly is it better than that of your competition? Is there an unfair advantage that you have above others? Or who are your various customers? Who are those you really want to? Is it just one customer, or there are cadres or levels to this? Now you've talked about you've outlined, you've defined your problem, and you've carved out a solution. Are there current existing alternatives that try and solve that same solution? What exactly are the key metrics? We talked about your projections, financial projections, the impact projections, goal projections, and all of that. You need to be able to outline that. You would have at some point created a prototype, right, to test with on the field to know, okay, yes, this thing is actually possible. As an entrepreneur, there are a whole lot of bootstrapping to be done, and that is why we say there are financial risks involved. And yeah, are there high-level concepts, room for improvements? Channels refer to your supply chain and all of that. Who are your early adopters? We talked about the prototypes. Who were those who first tried out this idea? And in the same vein, your cost structure. What goes where? We have the operational cost, we have the administrative cost, we have what goes into product development. There's a part that goes for analysis and market research and survey, all of that. And then we just finished talking about spending money. How exactly are you getting your resources back? What are the revenue streams? Are you, is it a one-time purchase, or would people have to pay recurring fees for your access to your goods or services? How exactly does this work? Those are basically the things we need to consider. And I think with this, it's a good place to say that we have reached the end of this presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for all that you shared with us, Femi. And yeah, I think it was, I like the fact that you started by like differentiating the difference between innovation, invention, creativity, and how the whole the whole information that you're giving us builds upon each other. So at this point, I think I'd like to ask if there are questions from the audience. This is the right time to ask them. And as the audience gather up their questions, I think I'll have mine. I can ask mine. So, Olufemi, you talked about having built Valve and about it being mainly about giving access to clean and affordable power to like people within Nigeria. So maybe my question would be, after all these years of running Valve, and maybe reflecting back on how you did it, and especially how you started, what's the main thing that you would, if given the chance, you could have done different?
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. So starting Valve, it was a very, very wonderful idea. I had to explore different means of energy sources before settling for this concept, right? So it's going to be having a more detailed approach that involves a whole lot more documentation and time-based, basically time-bound activities, because a whole lot of these things, it started while I was a student. I was juggling school and doing some of these things in my spare time and all of that. So one thing had to suffer for the other. But thinking back now, it's all about, I would say it's my greatest regret, so to speak, was not putting a definite time to this, to starting, because the need had always been there. There were competitions, there are still competitions, right? One of the major competitions are, say, the MTN, for example, which provides a whole lot less capacity than what I can than what we have, and sells at times 4 of our price, right? So it's one of the um, unfair advantages, let me use that we have, which is the fact that we are providing these same things, not even the same, a better alternative at a much more cheaper price, so to speak. So what I lacked was that not putting a time to it, and then not having that initial confidence or belief in my idea. So timing and lack of optimism, those are the two things I would want to change if I can go back in time. Thank you.
Okay. And I think the audience would note those two things, because if they're actually building an idea, they can take note of that and learn from like your experience. My other question to you would be, now going back to the innovation and market research and entrepreneurship, like one of the biggest problems that most innovators, let me say entrepreneurs, face is aspect of funding. So maybe through your own experience, like given that maybe most people in our audience would just be starting up, and maybe they'd be students as the same. So like, what's the best advice that you can give them to go like around this issue of funding? Because they might have that innovation, which is like the idea, but now how do they get the support to actualize the idea?
Okay. So a few things I did, and before my partners joined me, was as a student, right, I was on scholarship. So I was able to use some of the funding I received from those, and basically redirect that to the whole brainstorming and product development stage. And then before getting access to more funding, it's basically been bootstrapping. We sometimes have to like take back orders, and then in basically 3 to 7 business days, use the funding we receive to create more goods or products rather, that will be pushed out. But overall, and then from there, we were now sure and confident that what we were doing was very important. Then we started putting in for competitions and speaking to other VCs that we knew, and that is how we've been getting most of the funding. So basically, look out for competitions. There are a lot of competitions out there that you could participate in. And one major thing you would want to do while participating in those competitions is understand how to pitch your idea. It's one thing to know what you're doing. It's another thing to be able to confidently and convincingly say it to someone and make them believe in what you're doing.
Okay, so bootstrapping is the way, and also be on the lookout for like the different opportunities that are there and the competitions that can also get you more funds for your ideas. So any questions from the audience? I would like to pause and give a chance to anyone. You can unmute and you can also type your questions. Okay, so we have a question from Chris Murimi. First of all, he thanks you for the presentation. Then he says, between a well-defined problem and a well-developed MVP, which is the best measure for the ability of a startup to scale? Yeah.
So let me be sure I heard you correctly. Between a well-defined
Oh, so he's asking.
okay, yeah, I
when
can see the
comparing.
question now.
Oh, okay.
So between a well-defined problem and a well-developed MVP, which is the best measure of the ability of a startup to scale? So it's more or less towards the well-developed MVP. The MVP means you've identified the problem, right? And hopefully you did that well. And now you've tried to touch the open nerves, right? Yeah, I can say open nerves. So you're trying to hit that nail on the head first to touch those core areas. And your ability to do that well is what we call a proof of concepts. And you doing that well, coupled with your plans for projections, if done well, is what determines your ability to scale. I hope I answered Chris Morimi's question.
Chris, you can maybe type if it's well answered, or if you have a follow-up question, you can also ask.
Hello, Chris, and all listening.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
Yes. If I'm audible.
We can hear you.
I'm sorry, I couldn't get that.
He was just doing a mic check.
Okay, okay.
Chris, we've lost you again.
Sorry, if there is a problem with my audio, I can just type on the chat.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, so thank you for the clarity. The only problem I had is that, you see, I noticed that there are a lot of people who just jump in to develop they are more interested in the technology part of the product they are developing. So I tend to feel that most people end up being rushing to develop the product. For example, you just discover there is a problem without even properly investigating on the problem, and then in a day or two or a week, you have already developed the application or developed the hardware part. But now there is someone else who just take time to clearly understand the problem. So there's something that usually trigger me on that, because you tend that to see that most people, mostly in pitching competition, that most people are more wowed by the product, not the problems themselves. But you see there's someone who may not have the MVP, but he has a well-defined problem. So that is why I was maybe asking for clarity on that, on maybe your suggestion. Would you advise someone to dwell in the problem and clearly understand that before developing the product, or you just develop the product, understand the problem as you launch, and maybe more users use the product? Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. So when you're trying to understand a problem and then develop the appropriate solution for that. It's not advisable to just say, okay, to just look at it from a surface level. There are a lot of questions. They're basically, there's something called reasoning from first principle. And I wrote a funny article on that in 2020, loosely tied to my experience. I'm trying to see if I can find that to share. But either way, it's all about reasoning from first principle, and it is called why is my dolphin not working? The concept behind that is, yes, we all want something that can, in this case, swim, but we don't really understand what makes a dolphin a dolphin. And so we just say, okay, we know a dolphin is an animal, and we want an animal that can jump into the water and all of that. And at the end of the day, you just keep doing things blindly, and before you know what is happening, just because you have the necessary tools at your disposal to develop um, um, technology, right, that can be at par with Iron Man's suit, for example, doesn't mean you should go ahead and do that if it doesn't solve that problem. So it's very, very important to not be intimidated by those who are just throwing a hammer at a problem that requires a spanner, for example. It's very, very important to understand the problem, and you need to ask yourself three very important questions. Why, what is, and then what if? So why does this problem exist? What exactly is this problem? Why does it exist? What if we try to address it from this perspective? What would happen after that? So those are the type of thought experiments you need to put into play. Those are the questions you need to ask yourself over and over. Let me just, so as not to take too much of your time, let me give you a very, very funny scenario with what happened. So I participated in Hot Prize, I think 2018 or so. I noticed that in Nigeria, and I'm pretty sure this a similar case exists. Most of the students are more or less not mobile. By mobile, I mean have access to cars. So it's either the school transport system or they have to walk around the campus. And coupled with that, there really isn't enough, should I say, electricity, unfortunately, in the hostels and campuses and maybe in the school environment. So a lot of students have to start looking for where there is electricity, just so that they can quickly charge their phones and laptops and the likes. It was a very, very terrible period back then. And I realized the first thing that occurred to me was, okay, two things. Students are not mobile, so they walk around a lot. And secondly, they need electricity. What if, and it happened just because I knew how to, what if I put um, some a device, I embed some device in their shoes, I make a whole new shoe, right? That with every step they take, they can generate electricity. Now that is a very, very wonderful idea, in all honesty, that can scale. But the truth is, it wasn't what was needed at that point in time, when there are other options, other energy sources that could be explored, even at a cheaper alternative. So it's very, very important that we properly understand the problem, not just from a surface level, but properly before we start developing. So yeah.
Okay, Chris, is it well answered?
Yeah, okay, so, sure. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, any other questions from the audience? I think we have about 10 minutes left. Okay, as the audience gathers their thoughts. Now, I think I'll direct a question to both Olufemi and Githinji, if he's still in the call. Yes, he's still there. So both of you are founders and you've been in the entrepreneurship space. Now, my question to you is that, so most people, okay, some people who move into the entrepreneurship space might come from an engineering or technology background. And entrepreneurship, as Olufemi you've shown us, it entails a lot, from the research to the ideas, the evaluation of the ideas, and maybe when you get funding, you'd have to learn a bit of business. So how did you navigate through all that, given that both of you have that engineering background? So I think we'll start off with Githinji.
Yes, thank you, Cliff. I think I will echo what Balogun just said. Most of these things they starts at some point. And specifically mine started while I was in campus. I could build things and then I could build solutions for people. As I remember, I built, by the time I was finishing school, I had built over 50 projects for different individuals. Some in-house, some maybe in another different campuses, some in a different ways, all that kind of stuff. And something I get to learn is, there's someone who always say, when you are building something and learning at it, you actually get to learn so much more than what you would have learned in an MBA class. I like to use that analogy of build while learning, because trust you me, if you would walk to any individual today, even in the crowd here, who is maybe an employee, an engineer, or maybe a government guy, these guys, they can actually tell you how a startup should be run. And they will give you so many reasons as to why you are doing it wrong. But if it's them, they just need like just 6 months and everything is running. You see, that's like a fun. Maybe if I'll put it in a more football like, it will make more sense. If you're watching football, and I believe Mohamed Osman is the Osman I know from Moy University, who is a Manchester fan. Mohamed Osman, when Mohamed is watching football, he knows everything about how a goalkeeper should not actually miss a ball. He knows everything about how that ball could have been gotten to the other side. And that is similar thing when you actually on the other side, where you are doing nothing and you are just playing it in your head. Like you have an idea and you're playing it in your head. So that is Githinji in 2015, 2017. And then I registered a domain. I worked around a couple of ideas, and then of course, nothing was actually picking. I would build things, but I realized I was building it with an engineering mind, where you put all your engineering together and you build something, but there's no commercial benefit into it. And then now the question of how did the business and all these other skills come along is I'm this person who is always ready to learn, no matter the situation. I will always poke myself into any place and just sit down and learn. I will sit to any class. I will sit to psychology class. I will sit to economic class. I will sit to biology class. I will go to high school if I have an opportunity, and sit down and listen to the talk. So after I finished campus, before I joined IBM, I had an opportunity to go to Safaricom Alpha. And that is the first adventure or so I heard when I met this kind of group of people who introduced me to the block thinking of entrepreneurship, or rather block thinking of quote unquote building a startup. And they brought in some aspect of research, and actually they forced me to do research in 1 month of whatever I was building. Just to cut the story short, I realized that whatever we were thinking of building with the team, it was not actually feasible because we are looking into an hardware solution, and I realized that solution required things we call iterations, required things we call some waterfall kind of an approach, which is not really agile and capital intensive at some point, among other things. And also, later I realized if I would have looked deeper and deeper and deeper into the business world, I would have realized that I didn't even require the hardware to do that, because some other people are doing it using apps, some other people are doing it even using just a print of a QR code on a paper, and they were fine. So for me, I'll say I believe in one thing. That's even why my mantra is meant at manners, meaning mind and hands, or rather learn by doing. That is one way I believe. If you really want to learn anything, you can't learn it in just by looking for someone else doing it, because you will actually run on the fantasy world where you think everything is easy. Not until you start doing it, that's when even the simplest things you realize they are really, really hard, because especially in the business world, it's not like in engineering world. In engineering world, you will have to sit down, fix your problem, and that's it. In the business world, people will buy because of so many reasons. And now making the first sale is not even a problem. Getting that person to come, something we call now recurring kind of a customer, and or rather maybe refer another person to your product, that is even now the biggest challenge. And the best way to do this, especially to learn the business and the soft skills and the marketing and the sales and the finance, is actually to start doing something while you are learning about it. Otherwise, if you go to a class and do entrepreneurship 101, even if you do it for 5 years, you might come out of that class and actually you can't do nothing. So that's just my experience. Just throw yourself into something, even if it's just a small project. Challenge yourself. I'll give an example of some few ideas I've seen MOI students building. There is someone building this idea about, and I think Marafiki or something. Rafiki, I think Marafiki or something. I think that student will actually learn so much than someone who has a PhD in MBA, but they have actually never built anything. And then that person may actually get, yes, Rafiki, that person may actually get so much understanding of why things fail and why things work because of that exposure. So that's my feeling. Maybe Olufemi could respond and share her thoughts on the same. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, I really agree with a whole lot of what you said. Speaking of which, I think there is a question. Okay, I will probably take this offline. Kitinji, you asked a question concerning the telehealth project at Power Africa. I don't think I responded to that. I just remembered. We'll take that offline later on. But with regards to what you've said so far, it makes a whole lot of sense. And it even made me remember a point where I was, well, in my, I think my 200 or 300 level, I was technically working as a research assistant of some sort with for some lecturers and PhD students in not just electrical and electronics engineering, but as far as agriculture, the Faculty of Agriculture. We are looking at how we can bring about IoT and agriculture together. And then there are a whole lot of projects like that, and it all stemmed from the things we did in class. So let's say we talk about transistors, for example, how they can be used as a switch, as an amplifier. I'm going back to my hostel, and then I'm trying to see how I can do this or maybe implement it in a new project. it's all about how you can learn. I think during my presentation, I made mention of it's not about what you know, but how fast can you learn. Learn and keeping that knowledge is very important. It's also very important for you, like he rightly mentioned as well, to learn by doing. You don't just if you okay, yeah, this is the best way to do it. I would probably classify learning, right? You just getting whatever it is that you've been exposed to and just keeping it in your head. Maybe you have a good retentive memory, but that is only being aided by your intelligence and all of that. But your ability to take all of that and apply it, and not just apply, but apply successfully, and then get feedback in such a way that you can okay. Okay, there's a question in the chat. Thank you, Kitenji. So, your ability to take all of that and apply that knowledge is what we are talking about right here. So it's about you being able to learn in any situation you find yourself. Learn from even the smallest things, no matter what it is. Just be open to learn. For the business aspect, yes, it's engineers would always want to build. The truth is this: as engineers, we all want to show off our skills, that we can do whatever it is that we want to do, and we can achieve it. We can probably make flying cars, and you would, in the right sense. Okay, I should probably use this to explain this. Why do you think flying cars don't exist? I mean, you would think, isn't that where we are all going to at the end of the day? But then think about most of the devices that are in the air. They all have one major thing in common: noise. The helicopters, even your drones, no matter how small they are, they still have a certain amount of noise that goes with them. So yes, it's a very, very wonderful solution, flying cars, but it is not just feasible at this point in time. So there are business cases for that. There are businesses wrapped around that. There's the Terrafugai company that is focused on making flying cars. But the truth is, it's currently not being deployed now. But yeah, even though that solution is being worked on, there is there is what we call projection, right? It's been mapped out against the future, not for now. So planning ahead. It is very, very important as an engineer to not just know the technical stuff, but also the business perspective of things, the project management, the product development, the financial analysis, the day-to-day running of your organizations, all of that. You should, even if you're not the one doing that, which is why it's also cool to collaborate as well with others, with like-minded individuals, people who believe in your dreams, people who you can always work with, amongst other factors that you would want to consider. But make sure your factors are not based on emotions, because, oh yeah, I know this guy. Well, it should be based on the fact that that person could actually, live up to that task. So it's very important for you to learn what you can and also collaborate where necessary. Let me try and find, I think it was Janet's question.
Yes, so let me just help you there. So Janet was asking, when is it advisable to get into competitions? Should it be before or after you develop your MVP?
So it depends on the competitions. There are some competitions that would require you to, that basically is just an ideation stage, and all they need is for you to pitch a concept to them, which is mostly how most some hackathons operate, where you just pitch your idea. And for long term hackathons, like I think there is supposed to be an IEEE Arduino competition. What you just do is just pitch your idea first, and then afterwards there are some trainings that you'd have to do, and then they give you the necessary tools. And at the end of the competition, these competitions last say 3 to 6 months, but at the end of the day, you would have developed your MVP by the end of that competition, because they are always in stages. And so you start with the ideation process, and you keep learning, keep iterating and iterating until you finally end up with that MVP. But for the other competition, should it be before or after you develop your MVP? The truth is, you may not have your MVP available, because I remember I talked about bootstrapping. Yeah, sure, it's fine to bootstrap, but if you can afford to convince the judges, right, that yes, I may not have this, I may not have a tangible form of what I am talking about here, but if I did, this is how it was going to work. If you can convince them beyond reasonable doubt that this is exactly how it's going to turn out, then sure, you could do that. But in all scenarios, even if you don't have a physical MVP developed, you should have, should I say, from a theoretical point of view, have it available, or at least have a sketch. Just make sure you have something that you can show, because, and yeah, it's also very important for you to plan ahead. So it's always good to have something in your back pocket. That's special card. So yes.
Yes, maybe I can add something on that.
Okay.
So on top of what Olufemi has just said, it depends on what exactly is the level. Of course, there are those ones who are going at MVP level, ideas level, or even just going there and just given a problem, and then you sketch through, and then you just compete. But there are two ways I always look at competitions. I always look at them from the point of you either lose, or you either win or lose. That is how some other people will look at it. But if you always want to always win in every competition you go in, consider each competition as a learning platform. Why is this important? It's important because I've been in a couple of competitions, and one I won, another one I lost. I lost, but the one that I lost, I learned something that was so bitter truth to whatever I was building. And someone told me that for you, whatever you are building is really, really nice, and you could have been the first one, the top in this competition, but you are building it on an hobby point of view, which is different from a business point of view. So what I learned from that is that I lost, but I didn't lose because of anything. I lost because the competition there was actually to show how actual your business is, or rather how actual is whatever you are building. Because the question I was asked is, how much have you generated with this from the time it was built? I said 10K. And then someone else said, my idea has been in existence for 2 years. It has not really gone far, but I've generated 200,000. Guess what? The guy with 200,000 took the day. So that should also tell you something. I would have looked at it at the point of, I've just lost. But if you always go to this competition, whether it's in the ideation stage or MVP stage, and take that platform as a learning opportunity, you will always walk out of any competition as a winner. Why is this mentality important? This mentality is important because it's only in the business, it's only in some these traditional regular business where whatever you set in, you will die with it that way. But in a startup world, in an innovation entrepreneurship world, you always work with things we call iterations in your mind. I think Olufemi mentioned this. You will always iterate, and you will always be longing for the next big thing to happen from that. Just a wrap up of this. The Facebook of 19 or the Facebook of 2005 or 2010 is not the Facebook of today. And if you thought that Mark Zuckerberg was building Facebook, imagine what happened in the last 1 year when he said that it's no longer Facebook, it's Meta. And then for some of us who don't know much about Facebook, imagine the kind of empire that Facebook runs, or rather Meta runs, from Facebook to Instagram to WhatsApp to Oculus, all that. So imagine if now he had stuck to the point of, I have the final product, which is Facebook, and which is Facebook version 1. So through competition, through different kind of ways into looking into competition, he has actually evolved. Of course, there are different ways to look at it, the negatives and the positive. But through these quote unquote competitions in different stages, it has evolved, it has made him evolve into the kind of empire that we know, the kind of meta empire that we know. The last comment will be to emphasize on what Olufemi and the question that we all answered. It's one thing to have a knowledge about something. It's another thing actually to employ, or rather to apply that knowledge. And it will be like our sum up of this discussion today. All of us will graduate as engineers. And have you ever asked yourself, why is it that someone who has this kind of marks in class, maybe you have done a computer programming class and someone has already 90 and someone else has a 50, but this person who has 90, they cannot even say what that language they got 90 is all about. The difference between these two people is one has a knowledge, another one has a knowledge and he knows how to apply it. And assuming that I'm speaking to the congregation of engineers, for you to be a competent engineer, I would even urge you and plead to you, have the knowledge, but more importantly, pray to God. Let's even be spiritual enough here. Pray to God, whatever God you pray, so that God can give you understanding of how to apply that knowledge. Otherwise, if you just have knowledge of things, but you can't apply that knowledge into solving any problem, you will be as useless as not even having that knowledge. So that's like a harsh way to say, having a knowledge but you don't even know how to apply it, it's even better not to have it. That's just my final comment as we progress to this journey. Make sure that whatever Olufemi, whatever Kitinji, whatever next speakers will share, find place for you to apply this knowledge. Otherwise, if you don't apply it, you will just forget it as any other lecture that you've attended. Thank you very much, and that's my closing remark. Back to you, Cliff.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. Thank you, Olufemi, for making the time to come and share with us all the knowledge around innovation and entrepreneurship and market research, and also Kitinji sharing opportunities around IEEE Entrepreneurship Week. At this point, I'll hand it over back to Sang, who's going to just give a vote of thanks and finally close day one. Sang, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Cliff. Thank you so much. And at this point, I am going to say thank you, Olufemi. Thank you, Kivenji, for the great talk that you've given us. And I think one of the highlights from this is this reasoning from the first principle. I think that is one thing that I'm going to really think about it, and it has given me some highlight. Currently, I'm working on my final year project, and this reasoning from the first principle will really give me another insight and get to solve maybe the issues that I'm going to have. So thank you so much, Olufemi, and we really say thank you as the IEEE Entrepreneurship Week ambassadors and also the team. We are really thanking you for your time and for the great talk that we've had today. Okay, Vinci, thank you too for the introduction to IEEE entrepreneurship and everything about entrepreneurship and for all the remarks that you've all given us. Also, thank you to our audience, for everyone that was able to join today. I am really saying thank you, and for day one at least, uh, I say thank you that you've attended this day one. We also have, just to mention, we still have tomorrow on Tuesday. We also have another one on Wednesday. So tomorrow we are going to handle maybe financial management and project management. And then on Wednesday we are going to have mentorship and guidance, and also on communication and presentation skills. As we near the project pitching on Thursday. So yeah, those are the topics. And we will be having our project pitching on Thursday, which is going to be physical. We have integrated with the Kenya Students and Young Professional Congress. Yes. This IEEE Entrepreneurship is a special event at the Kenya SYP. So thank you everyone, and that's my last remark. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. See you back here again tomorrow, same time, different topics, good speakers. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.